What's up? Today we're doing a July and August wrap up, and the reason why I'm putting them together is because I was very busy in July, very busy in August, and I only read a book in each of those months, so I waited to put both of them together. So yeah, I only read one book in July, one book in August. I'm definitely behind on my Goodreads reading goal. Hopefully I can catch up this month though, so that's what I'm gonna try to do. But, yeah, so let's just get into it. This will be a very short video. The first and only book I read in July was called Aurora by David Cope. And it was, kind of in a way, I'm not going to say it was similar to Leave the World Behind, but it was, after reading Leave the World Behind, it was kind of reminiscent, and it kind of was, similar in a way, like not at all really when it comes to the plot line, but it was similar enough, and overall the concept reminded me of the Edge of Collapse series by Kyla Stone. So basically, the concept of this book is that a Carrington level event happens, which creates an EMP-like event, and the whole book revolves around two separate stories. It revolves around Aubrey Wheeler and her brother, and Aubrey has a son and an ex-husband who was shady and had some problems. But basically the whole story revolves around them two and the way in which they dealt with this crisis. So basically Aubrey was, throughout the book, she was just like living day to day with her son, trying to get by, and her brother is extremely rich and wealthy. He's a CEO, Silicon Valley CEO, and he, unlike her, was preparing for a catastrophic event of any kind, but specifically this one, along with others. And throughout the beginning of the book, it basically describes how well prepared he was, and the process of getting to whatever the facility that he had created for this kind of catastrophe. And, but I will say the very beginning of the book starts out with, a scientist or professor or someone that's like really well versed in this, and that sets the stage for, Aubrey's brother's story, the CEO, and it also lays out the groundwork for her story. And she was kind of like, she had a decent paying job too, but she wasn't as obsessed with the end of the world as he was. And she was made aware the possibility of something like this happening, and she kind of just brushed it off and ignored it. And her lack of preparation is basically the focal point of this story and what the plot line revolves around. Because of her lack of preparation for this event, she basically has to scrounge up everything she can, learn everything she can, in order to try and survive the whole event where she's at, because she refused her brother's invitation to his bunker type facility. And so the whole story basically revolves around her and her son and the kind of chaos that is stirred up by this entire event. So I'm not going to go into the plot line any farther because I risk spoiling it. It's a pretty short book. Really interesting read. I gave it 5 stars. I was impressed by it. It kept me engaged in the story. I really liked this story. I thought it was creative. And let's just say, throughout the remainder of the catastrophe, unlikely characters pop up that were once out of the picture, and alliances form, communities form, the complications of being in a situation like this form, the question of morality and who should take who in this kind of event, and should anyone even entertain the idea of helping anyone? Should it be every man for himself? Like I said, this was very reminiscent of the Edge of Collapse series that I read this year and last year, and it takes a different spin on it because it's, instead of a man-made event like an EMP is, a Carrington level event is something that happens on its own, and is a naturally occurring event in nature, which is something that is really interesting because unlike an EMP can't, a Carrington event can be seen and possibly predicted maybe a few hours before, but it's not like an EMP where it's like you're aware constantly that that's a possibility. A Carrington level event is quite honestly rare and not impossible. Many people argue we're overdue for one, but it's not even known in today's modern era with the kind of technology we have, whether or not the technology would make it, and if it would fly for a little bit and then, come back on later. Like, there's no precedence set for this kind of event with the technology we have today. I love how this book goes into the real history, slightly with the real history of the first, and I'm pretty sure only Carrington level event that happened. And it might have even been called the Carrington event. I'm not even sure. It's been a while since I've looked into that stuff. But it goes into what happened the last time, and that was only with like basic technology and what had happened to it. So, and I also love how the book stresses what the Edge of Collapse series also stresses, which is the fact that the government really does not have precautions put in place for this kind of a thing to happen. And should an event like this ever happen, it really kind of will be every community for themselves to a degree, because there's no protocols for this. There's no, not really, not to the degree that it would be needed to protect the entire U.S. grid or any grid on the world. There's really not the precautions and the standards and things set in place for something like that to be dealt with. There's no plans really put in place. And if there is, it's on a very small scale for very small things. So I like that the book addressed that as well. It was very realistic, and in a way it kind of gave me 2012 vibes, because the way that the brother, which I think his name is Tom, his the way that he communicated with the scientists that he was in communication with, it was giving 2012 to a certain degree, like the whole idea that, his bunker was kind of like an ark, and it was just a very interesting book, and that's why I gave it 5 stars. It was really good. Okay, so that was the only book I read in July, and then the only book I read in August was called Operation Gladio by Paul L. Williams. Now, this is definitely more of a political book. Growing up in the truther community, I've heard of this before, and I know a lot about the Catholic Church and the CIA, but this book really laid everything out pretty plainly and clearly for people to understand, and the different allegiances, alliances, and the different basically organizations and stuff, and how they all connected to each other, and the banking industry and how it connected to the criminal cartels, and mafia, the mafia, and basically the network, and the basically how this entire operation ran, and it goes into detail. Most of it I wasn't surprised by, because I've heard things about this here and there, so it really wasn't shocking, but it would be shocking to somebody that doesn't know about how deep the corruption goes with the Vatican and our government, and their constant meddling in criminal activities for the sake of stability in XYZ regions. That's the excuse that our government likes to give, as well as the Vatican, for these kinds of behaviors. But this is a book that I would definitely recommend to anyone wanting to know more about the Vatican, about the mafia, about the CIA, about the U.S. government. This is a really good book. And I wouldn't say it's a starter level book, because it's kind of advanced, but it's not exactly advanced. So I would say this is intermediate level material right here, to understanding this kind of a stuff. And there were some names that I'd recognized just based off of learning about the Catholic Church's history of abuse. So there were some names of some certain priests and popes and stuff like that that popped up. And I'm sure if you follow, stories about the mafia or stories about the CIA, a lot of other familiar names will have popped up. So, this book was a really good read. I learned some new things, but overall it wasn't shocking to me. So I did give it a 4 out of 5 stars, but it was a good read, and I definitely recommend it to whoever does not know these things. So, yeah. That's basically it. Those are the 2 books I've read. Yeah. Let me look. That's basically it. But I will say that, currently, I'm reading, those are the only 2 books I read in the past 2 months. And currently, I'm listening to books on Audible because they gave me a good deal for the next 3 months, or the next month, because I've already used 2 out of the 3 months. And currently I'm listening to a book about the Medici family. I really am fascinated by this family after watching the show this year, and I want to learn more and more information that's historically accurate. I've started the great courses on them. Like, I'm probably on episode 5 or 4 of that. So I'm completely entrenching myself in this family because they're just so fascinating. And this book is a long book. This book is like 16 hours long. So yeah, it's a pretty long book. And then after that, I've got other books in here that are really interesting. A lot of different... I think the next book I want to read has got to be kind of like true crime or something. I kind of want to read some true crime. That's kind of what I'm feeling like. That's kind of what I'm feeling like. Because it is the fall. I kind of want to start getting into the fall mood. There's also some other art books that I'd like to read here. So, I don't really know. There's a lot that I'd like to read, but I think I want to do a true crime, but we'll see. And then I have to look at Cloud Library and Hoopla and see what they have, because I haven't really been on there as much. So some really interesting audiobooks that I have saved on Audible, so that'll be fun. And then hopefully I'll be able to finish a physical book either this month or next month. So yeah, that's it for this reading wrap up. Till next time, bye guys.